So we simply apply the same criteria when looking at banks that we would at any other business. Incidentally, there's sometimes you should know that I would say that maybe half or maybe even a little more of the reports about our activities are in the press are erroneous. Now some are accurate too. And then, of course, some are way out of date. I mean, we get confidential treatment on the filings we made to the SEC and our holdings. So they're published well over a year after we filed. And therefore, there have been a couple of stories in the last month or two as to something we bought. And of course, if you read the story carefully, we bought it a year and a half ago, maybe, and we may have sold it, we may have bought more, all kinds of things. So that I'd be careful about press reports generally. We bought a bank for Berkshire in 1969, the Illinois National Bank and Trust and Broker. We've had an interest in the banking business. We feel it's something that that falls within our circle of competence to evaluate. That is me.
Where did that even come from?
Right every time, but we don't think it's beyond us to understand the banking business, and so we look at businesses in that area. Charlie?
Nothing to add.
Okay. And do we have Zone 2?
Larry Myers from Omaha. Warren, two quick questions. The first one very brief. Do you have any timetable regarding when you will write your own book about your career in philosophy?
Yes, my timetable has always been 6 months from now. The answer on that is I've thought about doing it a few times, and I think about it. It always seems to me there are more interesting things yet to happen than have happened so far, and I don't want to. I know I won't write a second one, so I keep postponing it. That's my rationale on it anyway.
Thank you. Second question concerns dividends. Last Friday night, by coincidence, on Louis Rukeyser's weekly television show, the special guest was Philip Curray. And Mr. Curray made the statement that his favorite American stock is Berkshire Hathaway. And one of the major reasons he stated was that Berkshire has never paid a dividend, as we all know, and consequently you had superior utilization of the extra cash. Now, if you extend that reasoning, could it also be a beneficial policy if Coca-Cola and Gillette stop paying dividends and utilize the cash in other ways?
Well, it depends what they could how they would utilize the cash and what they could use it for. Those are more focused enterprises than Berkshire, at least in terms of products. And I commend managements that have a wonderful business for utilizing cash in those wonderful businesses or in businesses that they understand and will also have wonderful economics, and for getting the rest of the money back to the shareholders. So Coca-Cola, in my book, is doing exactly the right thing with its cash when it uses all the cash that it can effectively in the business to expand in new markets and all of that sort of thing. But then beyond that, it pays a dividend which distributes cash to shareholders, and then it repurchases shares in a big way, which returns cash to shareholders, but in a way that benefits all of them. So you will benefit from us not paying dividends just as long as we can use the to produce more than $1 of value and of market value over time. Whether we can continue doing that, how long we can continue doing that, I can't promise you, but that's the yardstick by which the decision is made. And that is the yardstick, I think, by which Coca-Cola is making the decision too, and I think that they deserve great credit for exercising the discipline to quit when they using cash when they run out of the opportunities to use it well, and then to further deploy it advantageously by repurchasing shares. I think one of the things I admire about my friend Bill Gates, he's got $4.5 billion of cash in Microsoft, and very few managements can stand having $4.5 billion of cash and not doing something unintelligent with it. So far, it's made sense for us to retain everything we earn, And I think it'll make sense for a while longer, but it may not make sense indefinitely. Charlie?
I hope it lasts a long time.
Zone 3?
My name is Dan O'Neill from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I would like to ask you a more specific question about Solomon Brothers, which is, why do we pay there so much? Why do we pay our employees there so much money? The conventional theory seems to be that there's just a different pay scale on Wall Street than the rest of the world, and it's based on the idea that traders are smarter than, that some traders are smarter than others, and in some supernatural way are able to receive signals that the future is sending back to the present. And how do we know that that isn't just an urban legend like alligators in the New York City sewers? Another theory would be that the large amount of shareholders' capital allows the traders to capture inefficiencies that are in the market in the same way that the House does. So it wouldn't make any difference if we hired Albert to run the blackjack table, and we would pay them the same. And I wonder which theory you think is closer to the truth.
You put it well. In the end, of course, you end up paying them at what you think, at least, is a market rate. And to some extent, the market tests you out by whether people leave because they can get a higher rate. But the limiting factor on that should be that you pay them a market rate as long as you are getting a market rate on capital. But it's harder to measure the market rate on capital in a short period than it is to measure the market rate on compensation. So a good many of the people that have left, but far from all, have left because they felt that they would obtain, presumably because they would obtain greater compensation elsewhere. The market was working in that way, just as it works in entertainment that way, and it works in the athletic field that way. And when it works that way, it leaves a return for capital that's adequate is an open question. I mean, I haven't looked at the figures on all the baseball teams, but I've seen some of them. And certainly in some of the smaller markets, the books were not phony. I mean, it is very hard to pay market rates for ball players in Kansas City and still make money running a ball team. Well, you've got a smaller television market and all of that of the big cities. So in the end, you're going to have to pay market rates to retain people, but part of that will also depend upon the period over which they measure what they're going to be paid. I mean, if you want to look at Goldman Sachs last year, they were paid nothing. Does that mean that everybody will leave because they can get paid something someplace else? No, because 80% of the partners or 90% of the partners have a longer time horizon than that, and they have an anticipated earnings figure in mind when comparing it with what they're being offered elsewhere. If you have a situation where market rates, exceed the earning capacity of the business, then at some point capital will flow away from the business. In the airline industry, which I use as an example, the market rate, in terms of the bigger airlines, people are not being paid market rates; they're being paid contractual rates. Well, you can't blame anybody for that. If you have a contract that entitles you to X, and the current market is a half of X, you're going to hang on to that contract very aggressively. And like I say, you don't blame anybody for that. It's just if you end up in that condition, though, you've got a real problem. And if you have the same problem that you have if the market is higher than, or similar problem, the one you have if the market is higher than one that you can sustain in your own business. My guess is that in effect, Solomon has put in a more Goldman Sachs-like system because essentially it created, to a degree, a partnership within it. To have that work, A, over time, the partners have to earn good money, and it will work. But B, you have to have people that have a partnership mentality in it. And if you change from one culture to another, you are not going to get 100% acceptance of any new system. Charlie?
Yeah, I was kind of a bad break to put in a new compensation system and then have a very bad year. In the very nature of things, people are going to blame the compensation system subconsciously. And then too, I think that Wall Street generally has more envy, jealousy effects than are typically present elsewhere. I have a friend whose grandmother used to say that she couldn't understand why people got into envy, jealousy, because it was the only one of the sins that you'd never possibly have any fun at. And, but generally speaking, on Wall Street, I think a lot of people have had the wrong kind of grandmothers.
Yeah, I've commented from time to time that, Robin Leach has it all wrong on lifestyles of the rich and famous because he's presenting all these wonderful things that will happen to you if you get rich, but they really aren't all that wonderful, these fancy houses and boats and all that. That the real advantage of being rich, as I explain to people, is that it enables you to hate so effectively that if you're terribly rich, but your brother or whatever, whomever, cousin or somebody is getting a little more attention in the world or something of the sort, you can hate in a very major way. You can hire accountants and lawyers to cause them all kinds of trouble. If you're poor, you just snub them at Thanksgiving and don't show up or something of the sort. But I've noticed that these rich people, particularly when they inherit great amounts of money, sooner or later they start, frequently they get very antagonistic toward siblings or cousins or whatever it may be, and they really can hate in a way that or get envious in a way that the rest of us really can't really aspire to. So that's a benefit that hasn't appeared on Robin Leach lately. But you see a little of that in the athletic field and the entertainment field, and perhaps even in Wall Street. That making $1 million a year looks great until this guy that sits next to you that can't possibly be as smart as you is making $1 million too, and then the whole world it turns into a very unfair place. Zone 4.
Good afternoon. My question is simply about the cash and cash equivalents that are shown on the balance sheet this year versus last year. In my thinking, cash equivalents is always something good to have around in case of a big market drop, being able to make opportunistic buys, as I know you've referred to Mr. Market getting manic depressive at times. Is there something that is less than obvious here that I'm not seeing, or position not there now should that happen in the marketplace?
Cash at Berkshire is a residual. I mean, we would like to have no cash at all times. We also don't want to own a whole lot of money at any time. But if we have cash around, it's simply because we haven't found anything we like to do, and we always hope to deploy it as soon as possible. We never are thinking about whether the market's going to go down or something of the sort, or whether we might buy something even cheaper. If we like something, we'll buy it. And when you see cash on our balance sheet of any size, that's an acknowledgement by Charlie and me that we have not found anything in size anyway attractive at that point. It's never a policy of ours to hold a lot of cash. Zone 5.
David Winters, Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. David Winters, Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. Years ago, you said you loved the newspaper business, and then over time, I guess it said it declined a bit, and how much you loved it. And I'm kind of wondering how you feel about it now, and if you can prognosticate a little bit for us at all.
Well, I used to love it in two respects. I love the economics and I love the activity, both. And the activity is not diminished. The economics are still exceptionally good compared to virtually any business in the world. They aren't quite as good as they were 15 years ago. So they have. I wrote about that a couple of years ago. Whereas what seemed almost the most bulletproof of franchises is still an exceptionally good business, but it isn't quite as bulletproof as might have been the case 10 or 20 years ago. I still think it's about as interesting a business as there is in the world. I mean, but if you're talking pure economics, I can't think of many other businesses that if I just owned one asset over my life that I would rather own than a newspaper in a single newspaper town. But I wouldn't have quite the feeling of absolute certainty that I would have had 10 or 15 years ago. Charlie?
Yeah, I think it's obvious. The newspaper proprietors are getting a touch of paranoia for the first time. I mean, they worry about the electronic revolution. They worry about the fact that young people, don't read. It's not as much fun going to newspaper conventions as it used to be.
They're still making exceptional money. I mean, that's the interesting thing.
But I've heard you say a dozen times, people don't seem to care what floor they're at, just whether the elevator is going up or down.
That is true. People feel better when they're on the second floor of an elevator that's just come from one than they do when they're on the 99th floor coming down from 100. There's no question about that. They have this projection. And of course, it's particularly the case where they've been in a business where the profits were automatic, because they start thinking about, questions of whether they really have the ability to make a absent this favored position. And that's not something they've had to dwell on before, so it can make them uncomfortable. They're all screaming about newsprint prices. We probably scream about them a little bit too, but I mean, if you compare being in the newsprint business over time to being in the newspaper business, I mean, it's a joke. And newsprint prices, if you can graph them from any point, 15 or 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and the price of the newspaper or the price of advertising is going up more. I mean, it is interesting to hear them yelling foul, because they have moved a lot in the last 12 months, and they'll move some more in the next 6 months. But believe me, it's better to be in the newspaper business than the newsprint business. Zone 6.
Mr. Buffett, my name is Liz Pruce. I'm from New York City. I was wondering on your acquisition criteria. I know part of that is that Berkshire Hathaway won't participate in unfriendly tariffs. I wondered how that philosophy may or may not apply to your role as a member of the board of several other companies.
That's an interesting question. I haven't been on the board of any company where the CEO has brought to the board the question of a hostile takeover. Did you think anything of? No, but there's no rule that can't happen. So I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what I would do if that came along. But it's a very good question. I used to have a whole different attitude on that. I mean, in effect, we actually, to go back 40 years, we bought, in effect, control of companies. Well, in the case of Berkshire, Malcolm Chase, the chairman, was all in favor of us buying our stock in Berkshire, but Seabury Stanton, the president, would not have been in favor of it, and Seabury was managing the business. So it wasn't hostile, but Seabury would not have been in favor of it, but Malcolm would have been. So I don't know what the situation would be today if somebody walked in a Gillette or Cap Cities or someplace like that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't have any policy on it at this point. What do you think we do, Charlie?
I don't think our behavior is totally predictable.
And he's right. Zone 1?
Yes, Neil McMahon, New York City shareholder. Ben Graham Investing encouraged turnover. Looking at Berkshire's holdings, concentration, and long term, are you still a 15% Phil Fisher and 85% Graham?
I don't know what the percentage would be. I'm 100% Ben Graham in those 3 points I mentioned earlier, and those really count. I was very influenced by Phil Fisher when I first read his 2 books back around 1960 or thereabouts, and I think they're terrific books. I think Phil is a terrific guy. So I think I probably gave that percentage to, I think I first used it in Forbes one time when Jim Michaels wrote me, and I think it was one of those things I just named a number. But I think I'd rather think of myself as being sort of 100% Ben Graham and 100% Phil Fisher, in the points where they don't, and they really don't contradict each other. It's just that they had a vastly different emphasis. Ben would not have disagreed with the proposition that if you can find a business with a high rate of return on capital that can keep using more capital on that's the best business in the world. And of course, he made most of his money on a Geico, which was precisely that sort of business. So he recognized it. It's just that he felt that the other system of buying things that were statistically very cheap and buying a large number of them was an easier policy to apply, and one that was a little more teachable. He would have felt that Phil Fisher's approach was less teachable than his, but his had a more limited value because it was not workable with really large sums of money. At Graham Newman Corp was a closed-end fund. It was technically an open-end fund, but it had $6 million of net worth, and Newman and Graham, the partnership that was affiliated with, had $6 million. So you had a total pool of $12 million. Well, you could go around buying little machine tool companies, stocks in machine tool companies, whatever it might be. They're all statistically cheap, and that was a very good group operation. And if you own a lousy business, you have to sell it at some point. If you own a group of lousy businesses, you better hope someone get taken over or something happens. You need turnover. If you own a wonderful business, you don't want turnover, basically. Joey?
What was interesting to me about the Phil Fisher businesses is that a very great many of them didn't last as wonderful businesses. One of his businesses was Title Insurance and Trust Company, which dominated the state of California. It had the biggest title plant, which was maintained by hand, and it had great fiscal solvency and integrity and so forth. It just dominated a lucrative field. And along came the computer. And now you could create it for a few $1 million, a title plant, and keep it up without an army of clerks. And pretty soon we had 20 different title companies, and they would go to great big customers like big lenders and big real estate brokers and pay them outlandish commissions by the standards of yore, and bid away huge blocks of business. And in due course, in the state of California, the aggregate earnings of all the title insurance companies combined went below zero, starting with a virtual monopoly. So, very few companies are so safe that you can just look ahead 20 years. And technology is sometimes your bitter enemy. If Title Insurance and Trust Company had been smart, they would have looked on the computer, which they saw as a cost reducer, as one of the worst curses that ever came to man.
It probably takes more business experience and insights to some degree to apply Phil Fisher's approach than it does Graham's approach. If you, the only problem is you may be shut out of doing anything for a long time with that approach, and you may have a lot of difficulty in doing it with big money. But if you strictly apply, for example, this working capital test security, it will work. It just may not work on a very big scale, and there may be periods when you're not doing much. Ben really was more of a teacher than he had no urge to make a lot of money. It did not interest him. So he really wanted something that he thought was teachable as a cornerstone of his philosophy or approach. And he felt you could read his books sitting out here in Omaha and apply buying things that were statistically cheap. And you didn't have to have any special insights about business or consumer behavior or anything of the sort. And I don't think there's any question about that being true, but I also don't think you can manage lots of money in accord with it. Zone 2?
Hi, Rob Pitts, shareholder from New York City. This is a question for Mr. Munger. I've noticed in the insider sales activity sheets that you've been a rather consistent seller of your Berkshire stock over the last few months. Wondered if you would comment on why you're doing this, especially in light of the prospective tax change in capital gains, where it might be reduced, which would obviously be beneficial to you and beneficial to Berkshire by reducing its deferred tax liability.
I've given away a fair amount of Berkshire the last couple of years, and I've also sold some. I gave away the Berkshire because I thought it was the right way to behave, and I sold some because I had uses for the money.
He doesn't know anything I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's selling. I checked that. But selling free. Charlie has a very high percentage of his net worth in Berkshire, as do I. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't think it's working correctly.
Hello?
Okay.
Hi, Goran Pilic from New York City. I have a two-part question. First part, very short. I think a lot of people have difficulty evaluating businesses because of some convoluted accounting schemes that are out there. Do you have any suggestions in terms of books or something you can read where you can sort of make sense of some of the accounting stories that are going around?
Well, that's a good question. And Abe Brilloff used to write for Barron's quite frequently on various accounting machinations, and Barron's has continued that somewhat. But you're right that there are people out there who will try to paint pictures with accounting that are something far from economic reality, and sometimes the rules of accounting themselves lead to that. I would say that when the accounting confuses you, I would just tend to forget about it as a company. I mean, it's probably, it may well be intentional, and in any event, you don't want to go near it. We have never had any great investment results from companies whose accounting we regarded as suspect. I can't think of one. No, it's a very bad sign.
I made a short sale once that worked out well in a case like that.
It really, accounting can offer you a lot of insight into the character of management. And I would say there's a lot, you run into a fair amount of bad accounting. I used to call it creative accounting, but and you probably run into a lot more if it was allowed. But some companies have been able to push their auditors pretty far, and I would be very skeptical of anything that looks suspicious to you. I think there have been a couple of things written, but I can't think of where they've appeared, where people talk about the questions of, but obviously if some prepaid expense, deferred asset accounts start building up suspiciously high, inventories look out of line, with sales and the trend of them and all that. You want to look twice at companies like that. Life insurance, frequently that, we see weak accounting in. You can, when you don't have a product where revenues and expenses are being matched up on something close to cash in the short term, you have the opportunity for people playing games with numbers. And some people have learned how to do that very well. And they've sometimes created long-lasting stock manipulation or promotion schemes that have enriched themselves or they've enriched the managers or the creators of it at the expense of the public over time. If you ever get suspicious about accounting, just go on to the next company. Zone 4.
Yes, Ms. Wasserman from Chicago. In order to understand the reinsurance business a little better, can you explain your relationship with Lloyd's of London in the marketplace? How you, which is probably the leader in the field, how often you compete directly, or if you've ever done reinsurance business for them since they've had losses in recent years, and how you see the industry changing as their economics changes?
Well, Lloyd's, which is not an insurance company, as you know, but well, originally it was a place. It was a coffee house, but people think it's a place where a large number of syndicates operate and congregate in a given physical location. and has had a history for larger, more exotic risks over time. Lloyd's has lost its relative position to a fairly significant degree in the last 10 or so years, in significant part because of bad results, which had the other effects of causing capital withdrawal and people who back the syndicates to become unhappy. So Lloyd's is still an important competitive factor in the reinsurance business and in certain specialized kinds of primary insurance. It's a very important factor, but it's not the factor it was 10 or 15 years ago, and I'm not sure how Berkshire's capital compares with the capital of all those syndicates of Lloyd's, but it certainly changed in its relative importance in the last 5 or 10 years, and the ability of Lloyd's to attract capital with the problems they had has been diminished, although they're working on that problem. But we regard Lloyd's as a competitor, just like we would regard any one of a number of reinsurance companies as competitor. But we also do business with a number of syndicates of Lloyd's, and we'll probably do a lot of business over the next 10 years with various syndicates. Charlie?
Yeah, well, Lloyd's is a very interesting institution because it had this reputation for integrity, what they paid off and what the San Francisco fire and so on and so on. And I would argue that 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of slop and folly got into Lloyd's, and certain syndicates particularly, and too many commissions coming off the top as the same risks circulated around the system. Too much fine tailoring and 3-hour lunches with fine wines. And it wasn't right, and they got in a lot of trouble.
Actually, in the history of Berkshire, the most significant insurance problem we ever had was in connection with Lloyd's or certain syndicates of Lloyd's, almost 20 years ago. And as Charlie said, they had this terrific reputation, behavioral reputation over centuries. And I think that they coasted for a while on that, and we had a behavioral problem with in one situation, and it was very expensive to us. So we may have gotten an early lesson in what was coming. There are a lot of different syndicates at Lloyd's, and there are different people running them, and they have had different standards of behavior to some extent. And people who assumed that because they were dealing with Lloyd's that they would have no problems of any kind have found out otherwise. But they will continue to be a major force in insurance, and they will get by their present troubles, and they'll probably come out of it better structured than they went in. Was that Zone 5 that we did there?
For Christopher Jones from Scottsdale, Arizona. I have a couple of questions for you. You've mentioned several times today about the difficulty and the frustration that you both have in trying to find capable companies to acquire parts of in the United States. And I realize that, of course, when we own Coca-Cola and Gillette, we are a part of the global environment. But it's surprising to me that there haven't been any global franchises or global managements that have been interesting to either of you. That I realize in the past we've owned some pieces of some. So I was questioned, because of the size of Berkshire now, might we see something more of a global flavor to the portfolio? And second question, you've also addressed the intelligent use of cash as something that you look for in management. Many management teams now are buying back their own shares because they can't find anything cheaper or better in the marketplace. Does your current philosophy of not buying back your own shares suggest that maybe you think Berkshire is overpriced at these prices?
Well, we've never bought back shares. We actually bought a few back in the 60s, but we basically have never bought back shares, although there were plenty of times when we thought it would be quite attractive to do it. But we've also felt that if we could create more than $1 of market value by, and maybe well over $1 market value by retaining $1, that on balance that would work out better over time. As long as we find ways to use the cash, which overall we feel will turn dollar bills into something larger than dollar bills, we'll keep retaining the money, and we won't measure that on whether we can find anything this week or this month, but we'll certainly measure it based on whether we can find anything in a couple of years. Always, we've had dry spells. Actually, right now there's a little more going on than usual, but we've had dry spells a lot of times over a 20-odd year period, and as I said, I wanted the partnership during one dry spell, so that. It will be. It's measured partly on what's going on now, and it's measured partly on the expectancy. And I don't think whether our stock was selling at X or 3/4 of X right now would make a lot of difference. But it would make a difference if we thought we couldn't find things to do with the money externally. The question about non-domestic operations, and as you mentioned, we've got. Almost $8 billion in Coca-Cola and Gillette combined, and Coke has 80% plus of their earnings from non-U.S. sources, and Gillette has maybe 2/3 or thereabouts. So you can argue that almost 40% of the net worth of Berkshire, 35 to 40% is operating outside the United States, right? Just in those two investments alone. In terms of buying a business outright, we don't preclude buying a non-U.S. domicile business, but it's not too likely that it will happen. We'd like to do it, particularly if we're large and if we understood it. But are we as likely to get a fix on a Helzbergs of Europe as we would a Helzbergs United States? I doubt it. I just don't know whether we would develop as much confidence in understanding the scene in which they operated and understanding the management and all that. But we might. It would have to be a pretty simple business. And it would have to be a business where we thought we really understood the moat for a long time. And it would have to be a business where we could establish a rapport with the management despite coming from somewhat different backgrounds. It's not impossible, but I would say it's less than likely. Charlie?
I've got nothing to add.
Zone 6.
Hi there, my name is Lee DeBrow from Morgantown, West Virginia. Ever since the Solomon debacle, it appears that you have attracted more and more media attention. In this regard, there have been numerous displays of what appear to be distractions from the actual business of investing. To wit, we had watched as you attended Bill Gates' wedding in Hawaii and bought a personal computer and now wear striking designer ties. And yesterday,
Bill would have invited me to the wedding even if I hadn't been at Solomon. But
yesterday we got those pennants during the rain out. A very serious question. Now that you've become this media darling, how can you assure us that you're still keeping your eyes concentrated on the proverbial ball?
Well, I do get more mail than I used to. So we've developed a little more of a system on that, but I do what I like to do, and just take speeches. I probably get asked to make maybe 20 times as many speeches as I would have been asked to make 10 years ago, but I make the same number. I've got my own selection process for what I do on that, and it's the same way. I'm invited to, I don't know how many. Dinner tributes, etc., and basically, I don't change the way what I do because I don't want to change the way. If I wanted something else, if while I was building Berkshire, that was being done to end up in some other spot, I'd have been there by now. And it doesn't change anything. It does change the volume of mail, but I've got that so that is not a big distraction. All right. Oh, I'll remain in Omaha. Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, if I hadn't wanted to be in Omaha, I would have figured out ways to change. It's been very easy to change decades ago. I think it's, we got a lot of people here who aren't from Omaha, but that's their problem. I mean, I've been watching Warren for a long time, and people who are concerned that he will change have a huge appetite for needless worry. The odds that I will change are about as good as the odds that Charlie will change. The mail thing is I wish it didn't. There was an easier way to handle it but you essentially can't answer all the letters you get. That's that simple, and that's about once you get past that and get a form letter that takes care of it, that takes care of it. Zone 1?
Yes, I'm Samuel Park from Tulsa, Oklahoma. My question is regarding Geico. I noticed that for the last 5 years, their return on equity has come down every year. Is this something signifies change of a business or just temporary thing?
Question about Geico's return on equity?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's true. It has come down to some extent. The Geico's growth is more or less a function of basically, I mean, there's a natural rate of growth there, and the growth in capital has been greater than the growth rate in premium volume and in invested assets, so that achieving the same success on underwriting and achieving the same success on investments will produce a lower return on capital unless they buy in stock, which they have done fairly significantly, but that's limited by availability too. But it's a very good business, but it's not a business where if you double the capital, you can double the earnings easily. Charlie?
Nothing to add.
Zone 2.
My name is Mark Hake from Scottsdale, and I think your question, or my question about foreign equity investment was pretty much answered by the other gentleman, but I noticed that you had made an investment in Guinness in the past, and can you comment on that? Is it still owned? And if not, why not?
We don't comment on purchases and sales of securities or ownership unless either we're legally required to or they hit this threshold level where we report annually. And we move the threshold level up as our assets move up. We don't move it up as a percentage of assets, so that we used as a cutoff this year 300 million, I believe, of market value as to where we reported. Now, if we'd owned the same amount of Guinness, which I'm not saying that we did, but if we'd owned the same amount of Guinness on December 31st, 1994, it would not have hit that threshold as we had on December 31st, 93. It would not have hit that threshold. And we really don't want to get in the business where we are talking at all about what we're buying or selling. We get a lot of speculation on that, but it's of no use to Berkshire to be talking about purchases or sales. If we were acquiring a piece of land downtown and we bought a quarter of what we intended to buy, for example, we would not feel we were benefited by a front page story in the paper saying that we were acquiring land. And we are not in the business of giving investment advice. Basically, we'll talk about our principles. So the only conclusion you can come to about Guinness or anything else that does not show up on our list at year end is that we did not own $300 million worth at market value at that time. Zone 3.
Yes, Mr. Buffett, my name is Don Brusca. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Recently, I've noticed you wearing an IZOD shirt with Berkshire Hathaway, and in the middle there was a fist grasping cash. Is that the new insignia? And the second question is that a shirt available to stockholders?
The shirt is not available. That shirt was a gift from someone, and the shirt is not available to stockholders, but you can draw your own conclusions. The meaning of it. Soon, Zone 4.
Yes, I'm Lyle McIntosh from Missouri Valley, Iowa, about 25 miles up the road. And Warren, recognizing this is corn country and I farm and there's several other farmer shareholders, this meeting hits right in the middle of corn planting. Could you move it back about 3 weeks? And also, I noticed Phil Correa was on Wall Street Week Friday night. I'm sorry, I don't know his marital status, but if he is available, have you thought about introducing him to Mrs. B?
Well, Mrs. B incidentally was out working yesterday. I went out and dropped by to see her about 4 o'clock, and she was doing fine. She will be 102 late this year, and my guess is she will be working on her 102nd birthday as well. So, but I'll let Phil and Mrs. B handle their own affairs in that respect.
He's probably a little too young for her.
Zone 5.
I'm Ken Donovan, a Cincinnati investor. You've addressed the subject of your feelings about buying entire corporations. I wonder if you'd say something about is Berkshire looking for opportunities to buy, we'll call them near franchise companies that might be based overseas, buying a stock interest or a part interest? And also, how do you feel about fixed debt investments of overseas companies?
Debt investments, was that?
Yeah, well, the first part was buying a stock investment rather than a whole company.
Right.
The second part was debt investments.
Yeah. Well, we're open to buying anything. When you say, are we looking at them, I've never been quite sure how we look at things anyway. I mean, they just seem to sort of pop up as from reading or something of the sort. But we are. It's less likely we end up doing it for some of the reasons I've given earlier. But we have bought stock in companies that, aside from Guinness, that are domiciled outside of the United States, and we would have. We could conceivably buy debt instruments. We don't buy a lot of debt instruments anyway, so it'd be very unlikely. But we will do anything we think makes sense at Berkshire that's compatible with the way we want to operate, and certainly we don't care where the domicile is not that important. Charlie? Okay, zone 5, is it?
Scott Spilkovich, New York City. My question is regarding the Helzberg acquisition. Can you comment on things such as the acquisition price, your sales and profit expectations, and how much debt were on the books at the time of the acquisition?
This is in reference to which acquisition? Helzberg. Well, we have not put out the figures on Helzberg's, and we won't be, but we evaluate, the sales have been published at about $280 million for the year that ended in February, and there'll be considerably more in the current year. But we have not put out the figures. I can tell you that obviously that we think that in terms of the amount we are laying out, in terms of shares and or cash, we think over time that it's going to be a very decent acquisition. It's the same line of reasoning we've applied in other businesses. Retailing, as I mentioned earlier, is the kind of business where you have to stay smart over time, and we've got a terrific manager, a fellow named Jeff Comment, who's going to be running it, and his record is extremely good, and I would bet the record would stay good. It earns good returns on invested capital, or we wouldn't be buying into it. We always look for good returns on capital. And a lot of companies in the jewelry business do not get good returns on capital. I mean, it's not an industry that where most of the participants are prosperous. It takes unusual sales per square foot compared to competitors to succeed in that. And we have one operation that does that in spades at Borsheim's, and then a different type of operation that does it at Helzberg's. The typical jewelry store operation is not a very good business, but we think we've got two good operations. Charlie?
Yeah, we frequently find that owners of entire businesses have schizophrenia. They want to sell their business for a little more than it's worth, taking stock so they don't have to pay taxes. And they want the stock to be to be in a kind of business that will make just one dumb acquisition, theirs, and thereafter will guard the stock like gold, making no more dumb acquisitions. Needless to say, the world is not that easy. And I think over time, we've made acquisitions that were fair on both sides and averaged out they've worked well for Berkshire. And I think a company that behaves that way is giving the best long-term value to the private owner who wants to sell. You do not want to sell your business for stock to a firm that likes issuing stock. Zone 6.
That was 6.
000.
Where do we have the mic? Oh, there. I don't think it's on. Can you hear me now? Sure.
Jack Lanning from Knoxville, Tennessee. I have a question which may not be appropriate for the officers of Berkshire to answer, but I think I'll ask it anyway. You focused on intrinsic value in your annual report, and you suggested that by reviewing the gray pages in the back, that one could possibly come up with a value of intrinsic value for Berkshire. I've made an effort to do this, and I think I come up with a price to earnings ratio of somewhere around 21, which seems to be a little overvalued. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Buffett, if you would care to divulge what you believe is the intrinsic value of Berkshire. And if you're not willing to do that, do you consider the price of Berkshire at this level to be fair?
Every year I get asked that in one form or another, and I always say that I don't want to spoil the fun for those of you who are working out the intrinsic value for yourself. You have all the numbers that we have that are key to it, and I would say that there's some important factors besides PE. I mentioned earlier that I thought that the page where we describe float, for example, is probably as important a page as there is in the report. And then the question is, what do you do with the capital as you allocate it over time? And obviously that makes a difference in intrinsic value too. But I would say in a general way that and this has been true virtually all of the time, that I think I would say that the intrinsic value of Berkshire in relation to its, I'll put it the other way, the price of Berkshire in relation to its intrinsic value, I think probably offers as much value as or more than the majority of stocks that I see. But I don't want to go any further than that. Charlie?
I've got nothing to add. Your story about the fun of working it out, there was a famous English headmaster who used to say to each graduating class, he said, say 5% of you are going to become criminals. And I know just who you are, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to deprive your lives of a sense of excitement. And
we'll explain that later on. There's a lot more to there's more to intrinsic value, as we discussed earlier, than just adding up what you think you can sell the pieces for at any given time, because it is a prospective figure. It is future cash discounted back to the present, and capital allocation is a good part of that. What you expect the float to do, for example, over time, would lead to a large swing in possible numbers relative to value. I mean, if when we bought National Indemnity in 1967, when it had whatever it had, 15 or 20 million in float, we didn't see it then, but if we could have foreseen the eventual development of float over time, it might have turned out that the intrinsic value of National Indemnity was many multiples of what most people might have thought at the time, or probably what we thought at the time. Zone 1.
Richard Dinchak from Melbourne, Florida. I have a two-pronged question. First on the stock, as we all know, is the first month this year, we ramped up about 25%, and then we pulled back, I guess, about 20. Just wonder if your thoughts on that, specifically, you attribute that to the books, perhaps, or institutional buying, or, what explanation you might have for that. And
I would say, I'll answer that first. I would say Hagstrom's book undoubtedly had some effect on that. It's impossible to measure, but that book sold a lot of copies, and my guess is that had some effect.
Okay, more so than institutional buying, because I've heard rumors like Fidelity and whatever were buying.
I just don't know I don't know how to separate out the variables, but I would say that the book was certainly a factor that at that time, and it's unreasonable to assume that it had no effect.
Well, a lot of the buying came in odd lots, so
a lot of odd lot activity. Yeah.
Certainly looked like book buyers.
Secondary question, I'm an electronics engineer by profession, so the technology sector is of prime interest to me, and I think we'll all agree at least the last 6 to 8 months has been phenomenal for the technology sector. And I also see that you're somewhat befriending Mr. Gates and inviting him to your house, etc. Is there a possibility down the road a piece of you doing some type of purchase of Microsoft or acquiring that, or is there something you two could work out together?
I bought 100 shares first day I met Bill, and that was the end of it. I just want to be sure I got his reports from that point on. This was personal, not in Berkshire. There's no chance we'll be in businesses we don't understand, and I won't understand it.
No, you're quite clear on that. I just thought maybe there'd be an exception because apparently.
Well, if you made an exception, he would be a very good guy to make an exception with. But I don't think I'll make an exception. Zone 2.
My name is Basu Narima from Arlington, Texas. Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger, what possibility to use these two great minds for a long term in life by either taking apprenticeship in Berkshire or opening a school?
I didn't follow that one. Where are you at?
Is the question what the possibility using these two great minds of yours to educate the new generation as a long-term investment in this country, to either through apprenticeship in Berkshire for young people or open a business school?
Well, let me try that one because I have a demonstrated record of non-performance. I have had great difficulty enabling my children to know what I know. And Warren, maybe you have failed less.
My children in many ways are a lot smarter than I am, so I have a different experience, really. So I think you can, I've mainly learned by reading myself, so I don't think I have any original ideas that I certainly got a lot. I mean, I've talked about reading Graham, I read Phil Fisher, and I've gotten a lot of ideas myself from reading, and in my own case, I mean, talk about your parents having influences. My parents had enormous influence, so I think you can learn a lot from other people. In fact, I think if you learn reasonably well from other people, you don't have to get any new ideas or too much on your own. You can just apply the best of what you see.
Generally speaking, I think we always get a group of wise people after sifting millions, but I don't think anybody's invented a way to teach so that everybody is wise. It's extraordinary how resistant some people are to learning anything.
Well, and really, what it's astounding is how resistant they are when it's in their self-interest to learn. I mean, I was always astounded by how much attention was paid to Graham. I mean, he was regarded 40 years ago as the dean of security analysts, but how little attention was paid in terms of the principles he taught. And it wasn't because people were refuting them, and it wasn't because people didn't have a self-interest in learning sound investment principles. It's just this incredible resistance to thinking or change. I mean, I quoted Bertrand Russell one time was saying, who said that most men would rather die than think. Many have, you know, and in the financial sense, that's very true. It's not complicated. I mean, human relations, you know, usually aren't that complicated, but and certainly it's people's self-interest to develop habits that work well in human relations. But
this is
What happened?
this is no joke.
Yeah, show me. What did you mean exactly?
They need to let people know before they even get involved with this how complicated that thing is. 100. I'm like, I don't got time to be giving you 100 items. Where you want me to go buy 100 items to submit it just not to get approved?
That is crazy though. Like, show me which one asked for that, because that's
Like,
a lot.
let's see. I think I
Let
got
me
one
make
there.
you a host. Because most are 10. 100 is it's a lot.
Yeah, who you telling? It's tough.
And 100 items, how much would each one cost?
Like, well, there was one. I think it was $33 or $39 for one.
So 100 of those is like 30
now I gotta go make-
something thousand.
Yeah, so now I'm like, I gotta go make 100 purchases, and I'm like, to even do that,
Nah,
Target's only letting you buy 10 items anyway.
we're good on that.
And some of the stuff on Target is only letting you buy like 6 items, not 10. Yeah, see, like this one, like right here, if you can see, this product is $33.11, right? And to do it, so there's only 2 people selling it, which is not bad. When I click the apply to sale, request approval. I think this one's one of the ones.
Is that the one that's like 100 or something?
Yeah, that's one of the ones that's like 100, and I'm just like, at this point, I just get. Yeah. Show a combined purchase of at least 100 units. At least minimum of 100 units.
Yeah, that ain't happening, bro. Even if they're selling them at like $1, that's still like $300 just for that. So you can delete that one off the list automatically, unless the brand itself. If you can find like another item that sells on Amazon, so copy the name right there, the Derma E.
1 second.
Yeah, and then we'll do a search on Amazon to see how many other items they got on there. If they got something else, maybe consider it. But that's only if that item asks for the regular 10 units. If it asks for the 100 again, we're done. Ooh, 100 units.
Right. So this is the list I've been working on so far. It's gonna start glitching. So all the reds, it's not letting you sell on Amazon or so it's on red. All the yellows it's able to be done on Amazon, but can't find the items in Target.
Ooh.
The greens means it's in Target and it's on Amazon.
Okay.
So that's the greens. So I was able to get quite a few done.
All right.
It's the whole list almost, but
How much more of the list you got left? Because it looks like you did a lot.
I mean, I'm a little persistent, so I kept doing as much as I can. I don't got much left, probably about.
Okay.
Yeah, I got this one. That one's done. So I got this, and this.
All right. So you can always finish those throughout the rest of the week. So now what we'll do with these. So you got these brands. All right. So where can we get something from? Yeah. Okay, let me write it down. If not, it would be hard for me to kind of explain the workflow sort of thing. Okay. All right, so pretty much, let's see. So we'll try to do a few things, but first and foremost, what we'll need to do essentially with all those greens is actually go through the process and actually buying them, like the 10 units.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot of buying that's gonna happen. But I think the better option will be though, not just do it for all of them, but mainly let's say the best 3 or 5 that you may actually really want to sell. Because some of them probably aren't not well, I don't know, we'll have to review it manually right now, but not all of those, even if you did get ungated and start selling it, it would actually be profitable. So for those, we can just scratch them off the list, but go after the ones that specifically are selling really well right now and selling at a good price. And maybe later on you work down the list and still do for the other ones because they may change in the future. But for now, we'll try to find those. So let's see. So do you have the seller amp on there or no?
I think I do. I don't know why I don't show up.
No, so for seller amp, you need to open an Amazon listing. Like, yeah. And it should show up. So click on your thing for the extensions.
I thought it was that big.
Now you got the Keeper.
I forgot it's on the
iPad thingy.
Not the iPad thingy, but it's on the. I thought it was. So I got the Keeper. I got the.
You just got to re-download it. That's it.
Just not.
No, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to go on the new page and look for the seller amp extension. The logo.
Yeah, thought I had it. Is it? Which one is it? Is it this?
No, it has to be the Chrome extension, which the first one that says Chrome extension. No, that's seller amp app. You don't want anything to do with an app. It has to be the Chrome Web Store. It's like the top one.
This
one. Yeah. I had so much cream the other night, dude. My stomach was hurting.
Like normally right now, I would have said I would have had a little bit next to me, but I try to limit all alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. Except on the weekend is where I might do a little something. That's it.
Man, me drinking too much is like the limit for the alcohol. Because I feel like if I don't drink it, then I'm drinking something else. And it's like the best of not so good options. As long as the person doesn't put too much in it, it's a good substitute for me.
I was gonna say mine definitely has a lot.
Yeah. I got different ones for it. Yeah, but the one that has a lot, no, that's not good.
It's on there. So why is it not?
How come show the logo? No, you gotta log in within the seller app. Is it logged in? Well, it wouldn't be. So open the Amazon page. Okay, there it is. Go back to the page you were in.
Yeah, I was like I said, on.
Yeah, I got you. I know how to fix that one. The listing, no, the Amazon. Yeah, and now click on the actual extension, little logo for it. I should load onto the screen now, if I remember correctly. There might be something wrong with what you want to use traditional Japanese stuff. Five enter. Yeah, try to refresh the whole page.
Right.
And maybe the seller amp is on there, but scroll lower. Maybe showing up somewhere else. Like scroll lower on the page.
Yeah, I'm just letting it load.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I'll do this.
Oh, I know. I know. SVG. Yeah, I don't know if your web permissions are not turned on or.
Everything looks good.
Because let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. But did you log into the seller amp?
I was supposed to log in. It didn't give me an option. It just said.
Yeah, so remove it now. Now just go back, yeah, remove it, yeah. And open a new tab. And now just search for seller amp. You want to log in? I sent the password and stuff in the chat. Text fonts. Let me check if the password changed. I don't know.
Yeah, capital K or just KAKA?
No, it's capital. Oh, never mind. It was changed. Okay, what's this? Yeah, you can just copy that like that and put it in there. No, when you log in, when it lets you log in, it should give you the option to download it. And there, if nothing's wrong with your Chrome, it should be okay. Okay, so this will be resize. What did it say? So what does it say the issue is?
Oh, it's not really saying the issue. That's the weird part.
And then it should show up. Yeah, because you're gonna need that to be able to do the other stuff. And so stay on the Amazon page. Like, let's try to see why, because it should automatically be pulling up. So click on the logo for the seller end.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so now that it loaded, that's good. Now just okay. So stay on that. Man, the seller app isn't showing up fully. Still stay with it. Go back to where it shows the square.
Which one?
Wait, I thought it showed up.
It showed up and it disappeared.
What in the world? It needs to be on there 24/7. And now scroll lower. You see where just at the beginning of it, the beginning of the cell. Yeah, don't do. Yeah, use the bigger square. Yeah. You see where it says cost and then sale price?
Yeah, so it says.
Yeah, so these two things will mainly be determining whether a product is profitable or could be, or if it's blatantly not even good at all. So for each of the ones that are green, you're gonna want to open them up, go to this page, and then you gotta look at the spreadsheet to see the price we are projecting that you can buy it for, and you put that price in there if it wasn't already in there. For most of them, the seller app should already have it since it's mine. And it typically saves this information. So if they don't have it, then they don't have it. But so if it needs the cost price is the one that the price you're gonna buy each one for at the supplier. You put that in there, and you see if it's even unprofitable. So you don't want to mess with that list. That's the list of the other people selling it. So the part mainly important is gonna be the cost price, sale price, profit, and ROI. So for all the green ones, you can just check all of them out. The ones that are profitable, like come back. I don't know how long it should take to do that, like 10 minutes or something, right? To look at all of them and see if they're profitable. So you just click on the link. You pretty much open the Amazon link. And close that tab. All of them that are being used.
I was gonna do.
Because the computer's having a seizure every time it needs to pull a new tab. My goodness.
There's all this stuff in the background is ugh. Yeah, I told you those I don't eat them.
Like the other day, oh yeah. I was doing something for my uncle. I was on the little Mac, the one I got the Zoom on right now. And I was just holding it in one hand and then and plus I have it mine super optimized. I go so far, I'll be watching YouTube videos like how to maximize your Mac. And I got so many things in there. And it makes me use it. It's almost like I have a Windows and a Mac. Because you add things to like supercharge it. So I was going so fast with one hand. He was like, "Oh my god, how's your computer so fast?" Because he's not used to it. He's used to regular computers, man. That take
Yeah, because like I said, mine was never this old. The thing used to be so fast. But at the same time, this one is super old.
Yeah, I think that might be the case though. So for this one, does the seller app show up automatically?
It did, and then it disappeared. Okay, very good.
Yeah. What in the world? Oh, she's calling.
So this one's actually a negative.
Yep. So if it says that, now one thing you may want to actually fully verify. Let's say, what's the price we got on the spreadsheet for each one? Because right now the seller app is saying $7.20. Let's see what the price is on the other spreadsheet, the one where you got the listing from.
This one?
Yeah, $7.20. Yeah, still the same price. Yeah, so something like that. So you can, yeah, so you change colors, yeah. Now you do the same for this one.
You would have told me that. I could have did this while I was in the group.
Oh yeah. That is true.
That's why I hate this thing comes up and it just disappears.
I think it's something with the permissions and stuff, but you can always figure it out later on. So I need logos. All right.
Good. So they were down.
Yeah, so all the ones that are not good, keep it pushing.
68.
Yeah, so this the brand.
Are we sticking only strictly to food, or?
For now, it's a little bit easier to get into, but I'm not dealing with food anymore. There's so much competition, but it's so big though. You can make it work. I did.
No, I don't mind dealing with the food. It's just I'm trying to, because with food it goes bad spoilage, like I said, so shelf life. I'm trying to avoid stuff where I don't really have like expiration dates that's like 2 months or a month. So I gotta get rid of stuff. So.
Yeah, that is true though. That's super true. So we'll go through this round just to get you started. Probably for about, let's say, 2 months or so of actually selling. Let's say 2 consecutive months of doing 10K revenue with like the grocery. It's super easy, and throughout those 2 months, you'd be learning so much too about the business and having to deal with a lot of different stuff. And then you'll be able to decide, okay, whatever the next industry you want to test. Pretty much. But we'll use this list to get you to those 2 months, and we'll see what styles you wanna check out.
I wanna go on email weave.
A weave? I mean, yeah, the ladies do be spending a lot of money on that stuff, huh? Come to think of it, it's a pretty good idea if you ask me. But I don't think they buy them online though. That's the only issues with that. Some they buy online. I think a lot of times they go to the store, or does Linda go buy her stuff online?
Everything's online. Amazon, man. And it's not just her to everybody. I've been watching.
Yeah, I mean, the next issue is gonna be with suppliers and stuff. You think you're gonna be able to get access to like those products?
That's the thing too, is you gotta go with them people that's selling all that hair stuff. Yeah.
So
they not sell it too cheap because they're always selling it expensive.
Yeah, that's true. It's an interesting market, but
yeah, it is.
Ikigai.
You don't come up and disappear. I mean, I'm not, how you buy something at 645 and you sell it for that much and you still in a negative of profits?
Well, with all the fees, man. So my seller amp is pretty hardcore, like, cause you can set all the different prices and stuff. So you deduct everything. So there's no hidden cost. So even though, let's say I have the extra dollar on there, not because there's the extra dollar between in the supply chain, but I feel like by the time, the little bit of tape I use for each item, the little bit of box, the little bit of shipping supplies for each single one, I round it up to $1. So even though it's not something that's specific like that, and even though the supplies you can write off in taxes, I still put it on the seller amp. Make sure I'm more profitable than I even thought. It makes me feel good knowing it's like a handicap, a -1. So
That's stuff I was thinking of. I'm like, man, I gotta go probably waste 1K just in boxes. Now you got tape, you got, especially with the food stuff we sell. I'm like, some of that stuff I was looking at is glass, and I'm like, I gotta make sure I have enough bubble wrap to wrap it so it don't break in transit.
Yeah, yeah. But the good thing, with a lot of this stuff, so you'll be able to get supplies from the UPS for free, some sort of supplies. So it's not gonna be, the high end stuff, the stuff that looks cool, but you can get a lot of those for free. And for the what was it? For some of the other stuff, you'll get net 30s, like, so you can pay them later on instead of having to pay all of it up front, like a Uline or something.
Okay. This one's $5.35. Set up for $17.90.
All right, so it sold 16 times this month. Well, that's an estimate. Go lower. Let's look at the Keepa, see what it says. But I really like this ROI though. I mean, what, 57%? No, that's still seller. Scroll all the way down to the screen so we can see the Keepa. Yeah, that's too low. You missed it.
Extension even running?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So now from this one, you go to track data or track product or whatever. Oh, that's not even the right one. It's actually data. Yeah. You click offers and then include historical offers. So top corner-ish, right corner. Yeah. Okay. So now I scroll lower. Now what we just did is it's gonna show us how many times it actually sold this past month. And it's not a good number. So it didn't sell that many times. It sold about 6 times. So that's Keepa telling us this is really up to date stuff. The seller amp, it's like a 3-month estimate. So they do it every 3 months and then they give you the average. But based on our most recent data, this only sold 8 times. And who sold it? Can you check the person, the name? Like scroll to the right. Yeah. So Elevation Express. So they sold it. So with something like that, even though it has a really good ROI, so we'll keep it. Let's see. Yeah, because you honestly could undercut whoever this is, the Elevation Express guy. Because go back to the seller amp so we can look at the numbers again. Okay, so cost price is $5.35 and we're selling it for $17.90. So we got a $3 profit. That's after all of the fees come out. So that's after all of Amazon's. If you have to go down to 40, 30, for me, my goal is 25. So you could slash the sale price half. And I think you should still be okay. Maybe not half, but so we'll keep this. It's not selling fast, so it's not a hot product like the people be saying, but it's kind of cold, but sometimes it's like that. So let's keep looking. Yes, sir. Let's see. Man, I'm fiending for the cremas. My goodness.
You got a cremas addiction.
That's a fact. It's a fact.
That's the thing. Normally, I would my share unless I buy my share. And you don't want it to be running that fast. It's probably almost 9:30.
Oh yeah, that is true, huh?
I'm not sure if we can disapprove. No. That's it. No, that one's a loss. 8 loss.
Okay, so I got a banner here. This is very different. Add section.
This one isn't profit at all.
You're losing money with this one, huh?
So I was gonna say, selling at that price, we ain't got a profit at all.
Which one?
This one, Whole Foods Market, $13.95 delivery.
That is crazy. Not even sound right. Contact form. So I'm gonna need that.
Yeah.
So this is an icon with text. Yeah, I'm gonna go get the clean up. There ain't no way.
This man.
I just got it yesterday too. I've been waiting for it. I bought it from this lady. She puts like the grenadine in it.
I haven't had that one.
Yeah, man. Some exotic stuff. I'm even considering actually creating an Amazon listing for them. So I got a couple bottles coming so I can take the pictures, and I'm gonna run some ads on some Amazon ads. See what's going on with that. That one's not good. Wait. There. So I can. Yeah, because right now I feel like you just need to get going. Get you a couple products you can sell and start selling. No more computer stuff.
Like I said, that's what I do. I just need to get my feet wet.
Yeah.
And then from there, start learning from those.
And you know what? I think I got the perfect company. Trader Joe's. Do you have any Trader Joe's up there?
I think we do, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna get you right with some Trader Joe's. I remember back in the day, they really held me down. Like 80% of the stuff I was selling came from them. And it was so easy because I just got them getting for groceries, and they were groceries, and then they had like 4 nearby. So I just order and go pick them up.
Yeah, like I said, everybody's like from Trader Joe's. Everybody I know that buys from Trader Joe's.
Yeah, they sell really well on Amazon, and I think. What's going on? Okay, so pretty much have to watch the video. guess I can wait on the Shrine team.
Oh, yeah, I think only one of them is profit.
Yeah.
I only care about the one that's good.
That sounds about right. Let me see. So let's see which one it is. Was it the one that only sold 8 times?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
But which product did you have that you stopped selling that was making profit?
I got a lot of those.
Ain't no more.
Huh.
Or that's recent that I can try and get ungated for. And
Well, actually, all of those. That's the funny thing. So all of those I've actually sold at some point. Well, if they're not profitable, maybe not all of them, but let's say 80%. At one point in time, I've sold a couple of them. So now it's more so which ones can you even get ungated for? Because that's the main thing. Because I actually have stuff you could sell right now and make money, but you can't sell it. I can, but you can't, which is a weird problem to have. From my end, it's not too bad, but from your end, it's like, oh, that sucks. So we're just trying to bridge the gap until you don't have those